Hello everyone, I hope you're all healthy and happy. Lately I've received so many messages, so many questions about little Shwai. People ask if he is my biological child, what our relationship truly is, and why I chose to name him Shwai. And today I want to make this video to tell you everything from the very beginning. Please stay with me until the end of this video, and maybe you'll understand more about the journey of me and my child. That day, just like every other day, I set out early in the morning. An old bamboo basket rested on my back, and my conical hat had already faded under years of sun and rain. The path into the village was so familiar, I could probably walk it with my eyes closed, lined with green fruit trees, dew still clinging to their leaves, sparkling softly in the early light. I planted these papaya trees almost 2 years ago, back when I didn't even know if I could survive long in this mountain valley. At first, there were only a few small plants, just enough to eat, maybe to sell. Now they stand tall, reaching my shoulders, heavy with fruit, and quietly, I feel a little proud. Each green papaya, cool and smooth in my hands, carries the weight of countless mornings. When I rose before dawn, my clothes soaked with sweat, yet my heart somehow at peace. When the sun lifted over the ridge, I began to harvest. I picked each fruit carefully, one by one, placing them gently into the basket. Every move slow and deliberate, because to me, each papaya is more than food. It's effort, it's hope. After harvesting, I gathered them together and began my walk to the market in town. The road isn't far, but it's steep, and the sun unforgiving. Yet somehow I felt happy. Perhaps because I imagined little Shwai's smile when I returned home with an empty basket. An empty basket means a good day. It means we sold everything. Life here, deep in the mountains, is never easy. But each day I can work, live honestly by my own hands. That, to me, is the simplest kind of happiness there is. When the last papayas were finally sold, I packed up my things, said goodbye to a few familiar women at the market, and quietly began the long walk home. The road back to the village was the same as always, silent, steep, and endless. My conical hat shaded half my face. The afternoon sun stretched across the hills, painting everything in a soft golden hue. I'd grown used to this kind of loneliness, only the sound of my sandals brushing the dusty path and the whisper of dry leaves beneath my feet. But that day, something felt different. Far ahead, along the winding path lined with trees, I saw a woman sitting by the roadside. In her arms was a small child, maybe just a few months old. She held the baby close against her chest, occasionally fanning it gently, as if afraid the mountain breeze might make the little one cold. The woman looked as though she had come a long way. Her clothes were wrinkled, her hair messy and damp with sweat, yet her eyes were calm, filled with a tenderness that made me pause. She hummed softly, rocking the child in her arms, her hand stroking its tiny forehead with infinite care. There was something in her gaze, that quiet, wordless love only a mother could hold. I stood there in silence. The whole scene, bathed in late afternoon sunlight, felt so peaceful, so moving, that it stirred something deep inside me. A mother, exhausted and fragile, still giving everything she has to protect her child. I asked myself, is there any love in this world greater than that? I didn't approach her. I just stood from afar, watching, feeling both warmth and a faint ache rising in my chest. For a fleeting moment, I saw myself in her, the younger me, walking alone, carrying silent burdens no one else could see. I turned to leave, but her image, that embrace, stayed in my heart. Everything seemed calm, even beautiful. The mother rocking her baby by the roadside, eyes full of love. But only moments later, something happened that froze me in place. As I stepped closer, smiling, ready to compliment her on her beautiful child, the woman suddenly startled,
Fear flashed across her face. Then, before I could say another word, she stood up and ran. She left the baby behind and disappeared down the path, clutching nothing but the wind. I called after her, but she never turned back. I ran a few steps, but her figure vanished among the thick bamboo trees. And then, silence. A strange feeling filled me. Confusion, worry, disbelief. My heart raced as I turned toward the baby. What if that woman wasn't its mother? What if this child had just been abandoned?
I walked back to where she had been sitting. The baby was still there, small, quiet, with tearful eyes looking around as if trying to understand what had just happened. She didn't cry, only from time to time came a faint, fragile sigh, the kind that could break your heart. I knelt down, my hands trembling as I touched her tiny shoulder. She looked up at me, those clear, innocent eyes searching for warmth from a stranger. Beside her was a red plastic bag. I opened it. A few worn baby clothes, a milk bottle, a couple of small toys, and a folded piece of paper. The paper was wrinkled, the handwriting uneven, shaking, as though written through tears. I unfolded it and began to read. Each line felt like a blade cutting into my heart. I can no longer afford to raise my child. I'm leaving her with whoever has kindness in their heart. Her name is Shwai, born on October 10th. Please, give her a life more peaceful than mine. I'm sorry for not being able to be a complete mother. I gripped the paper tightly. My throat burned and the words blurred before my eyes. Every sentence seemed soaked with grief and love. In my mind, I could almost see her, the mother. Maybe she had walked for days, lost, desperate, carrying her pain until she had no strength left. Maybe she had cried through the night before deciding to leave. And maybe every step she took while running away was a wound that would never heal. I looked back at the baby, her round cheeks, her wide, bewildered eyes, and I felt the weight of all that unspoken love her mother had left behind. The forest road around us was quiet, only the sound of wind brushing through the trees. There was no one else, just me, the child, and that silence. In that moment, I didn't know what to do. But deep inside me, something stirred, a feeling of sorrow, of tenderness, of fierce resolve. I lifted the baby into my arms, pressing her gently against my chest. She startled for a moment, then reached out and clutched a fold of my shirt. That tiny hand, that simple, innocent grasp, brought tears streaming down my face. I held the baby close and hurried down the narrow dirt path that led back to the village. The sun had risen high, shining through the trees, casting the shadow of the two of us, small and fragile, across the uneven road. The baby was calm, barely stirring, her tiny head resting gently on my shoulder as she slept. As I walked through the village, I stopped at every house, asking if anyone recognized the woman I had seen, or if someone had lost a child. But one after another, they all shook their heads. An old woman sitting on her porch looked up, her eyes softening when she saw the baby in my arms. "Oh dear, such a beautiful little angel," she sighed. "How could anyone ever abandon something so precious?" Her words pierced my heart like a quiet ache. I kept walking, past the small grocery stall, past a house covered in blooming bougainvillea. People stopped and stared. Some whispered, some just watched in silence. Their eyes were full of pity and something deeper, sorrow for a story they could feel, even if they didn't know. Every question I asked returned only the same slow shake of the head. No one knew. No one had seen the woman. No one knew where she came from. I looked around at the small houses, the faint trails of kitchen smoke curling into the warm light, and I wondered if it were me, driven into such despair that I had to leave my own child behind. What would I have left except tears? Perhaps that mother had nowhere else to go. Perhaps her decision wasn't born from the absence of love, but from too much of it. So much love that she had to let go, so her child could have a chance to live better than she ever could. I held the baby tighter, feeling the soft rhythm of her breathing against my chest. A strange feeling crept into my heart, part sorrow, part fear, and part something I couldn't name. But I knew in that moment one thing was certain. I could never turn away from her. I didn't know if I had the strength or the means to raise her, but when I looked at that tiny face, I knew I had to try. My mind at that moment was completely blank. Everything around me blurred, like morning mist covering the village road. I didn't know if the baby's mother would ever come back. I didn't know if anyone would understand what had happened, or if they would think I was the one who had taken the child. A flicker of fear passed through me, not for myself, but for the little one sleeping in my arms. I looked down. Baby Shwai was still asleep, her tiny hand clutching my shirt tightly, as if afraid of being abandoned once more. Seeing that, I held her closer and walked faster toward the commune office, the only place I could think of where I knew Officer Nam would be. He was a kind man, gentle and calm, someone the villagers all trusted. The moment I stepped inside, he stood up, surprise flashing across his face when he saw the baby in my arms. "What happened, LyTucam?" he asked. I told him everything, every detail, every feeling about the strange woman, the letter, and the looks of pity I had received from the villagers along the way. Nam listened quietly, his expression firm but warm. When I finished, he stayed silent for a long time, then sighed softly. "This is a difficult situation," he said at last. "But don't worry, we'll investigate and try to find the mother." He looked down at the baby in my arms, so small, so fragile, and for a moment, hesitation crossed his face. "At the station," he said gently, "it's only us men, and this baby is still so young, still needs care. We can't look after her properly right now." I stood there silently, my eyes fixed on Shwai's chubby cheeks where a tiny bead of sweat still lingered. Officer Nam sat back, thinking for a moment, then spoke again in a calm, steady voice. "Can you do me a favor?" he asked. "For now, while we investigate, I'll request temporary authorization from my superiors for you to take care of the baby. Everything will be legal and properly documented. Once we find the mother, we'll decide what to do next." I looked at him, my throat tightening, and then nodded quietly. "Yes, I understand." He wrote a few lines in his logbook, signed his name, stamped the paper, and handed it to me. "This is an official note confirming that you are temporarily caring for baby Shwai," he said. "I trust you'll make sure she has everything she needs." I took the paper, my hands trembling slightly. I couldn't tell if it was from emotion or from fear that I might not be strong enough for the responsibility that had just been placed on me. Before I left, Officer Nam gently placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Don't worry," he said softly. "Whatever challenges come, I'll help you handle them." I nodded, bowed my head in gratitude, and walked out of the station, carrying baby Shwai close to my heart. Outside, the sky had turned to gold. The last rays of sunlight slipped through the leaves, falling softly across the tiny face resting against my chest. I whispered, almost to myself, "Little Shwai, for now, you'll stay with me, all right? I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I promise you'll never be alone again." A breeze passed by, carrying the scent of damp earth and forest leaves. Somehow, my heart felt lighter. Perhaps fate sometimes forces us to face things we never expected, but from that very place, a new life quietly begins. I looked ahead at the long, sloping road before me, and for the first time in a while, I felt warmth instead of fear. Baby Shwai stirred in my arms, her lips moving softly, as if calling out to something only she knew. I smiled, humming a quiet tune, a song not meant for anyone else, just enough to drown out the whisper of the wind and to soothe two lost souls who had somehow found each other in life's wandering path. In the days that followed, I still hoped her mother would return. Each time the wind rustled outside the hut or a dog barked in the distance, I would look toward the door, imagining that she might appear, that she would run to hold her child and finally let herself cry. But the days passed, and I came to understand she would never come back. And from that moment on, I began to see Shwai as my own child. In my small, humble home, the silence of a lonely woman was replaced by laughter, by babbling words, by the sound of tiny footsteps chasing the sunlight across the yard. Each morning I woke early to cook porridge, while little Shwai sat by the doorway, playing with leaves and waiting for breakfast. When I went to the fields, she rode on my back, her small arms wrapped around my neck, her wide eyes gazing at the sky, innocent as the morning itself. I decided to keep her name, Shwai. Simple, yet full of meaning. Perhaps her mother, when she chose it, had placed inside that name all her hopes. A wish for her child to grow up peaceful and sweet, like the last ripe mango of the season. And for the rest of my life, I want to... Officer Nam, the kind-hearted local policeman, still visits us often. Each time he comes, he brings along small gifts, sometimes a packet of cookies, sometimes a soft toy, and once, a tiny wool hat that fit perfectly on Shwai's little head. Every time she sees him, baby Shwai bursts into laughter, stretching out her arms, begging to be held. And strangely enough, in Nam's embrace, she always laughs, bright and carefree, like sunlight breaking through the clouds. Watching them together warms my heart in ways I can't quite explain. In this world full of loss and hardship, there are still people like him, simple, gentle souls who are always ready to reach out to those who have no one. Maybe it's his presence that makes our small life feel less lonely. Many nights I sit beside the bed, watching Shwai sleep. The moonlight filters softly through the bamboo window, casting a silver glow over her peaceful face, so calm, so pure, as if no storm had ever touched her life. I place my hand over my heart, listening to its steady beat, and realize that ever since Shwai came, it hasn't been cold anymore. Once, my life was just me, quiet, small, and solitary. But now, I have a child, a friend, a reason to keep going through the days ahead. Shwai came into my life like a miracle, like a ray of light slipping through the leaves, illuminating a path I thought had long been closed. And sometimes, as I sit on the porch, listening to her laughter as she plays with Officer Nam, I look up at the sky. Somewhere out there, I believe, her first mother is watching too, smiling softly, at peace, knowing that her child is loved, truly loved, by another mother's heart. Thank you all for listening to our story, from beginning to end. Life is not always easy, but through kindness, compassion, and the heartfelt encouragement from all of you, my child and I have found the strength to keep moving forward, day by day. Thank you to the friends who have always been there, sharing a packet of noodles, a handful of vegetables, or simply a warm word that lifted our spirits. Thank you to everyone, near and far, who has shown love through every subscription, every kind comment. To me, those are not just numbers. They are faith, hope, and the reason I continue to tell these small but deeply human stories. I hope that through these simple moments on screen, you can feel a little warmth, a little faith in the goodness that still exists in this world. Once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I am LyTuCam, and this is our journey, the story of me and little Shwai.
bạn đã đồng hành và lắng nghe đến tận những giây phút cuối cùng. Mỗi một lượt xem, mỗi một ánh mắt dừng lại, mỗi một trái tim cùng đồng cảm đều là nguồn động lực để những câu chuyện như thế này được tiếp tục viết nên. Nếu cuộc sống còn bộn bề, đôi khi chỉ cần những giây phút ngắn lại, ta sẽ nhận ra rằng niềm tin, lòng nhân ái và sự sẻ chia luôn có sức mạnh chữa lành kỳ diệu. Và cũng chính nhờ có bạn, người không ngại dành thời gian quý giá để đồng hành, mà hành trình của nhân vật trong câu chuyện này trở nên trọn vẹn hơn.